everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Top 10 Factors Impacting Member Retention. I'm Marianne Murphy, Director of Marketing here at the Medical Fitness Association. I'd like to take a brief moment to introduce today's presenter. Dr. Paul Bedford has been working in the fitness industry for more than 3 decades. Paul has 2 master's degrees, one in exercise and health behaviors, and a second in social science research. Paul's research focus for his PhD was in health club member retention. So we are in good hands today. And he is the owner of the Retention Guru based in London, which will be clear as soon as he starts talking. So Paul currently divides his time between conducting research in the areas of retention, attrition, and customer loyalty, and coaching businesses and practical approaches to improve all areas of the customer experience. Paul's research has reviewed data from 4.5 million customers from 4,000 plus clubs in 70 topic areas. That's a lot. He has given more than 150 international presentations in 31 different countries. So we are thrilled to have him here with us today. Now, there is a copy of today's presentation slides that can be found in the handout section of your toolbar. And if you have any questions as we move through today's webinar, please type them in the question or chat section of your toolbar, and we'll answer all questions in the order that they're received at the end. Okay, Paul, take it away.
Marianne, thank you very much. Look, I'm going to say good afternoon or good evening, good morning. I'm based here in London, so for me it's 7 p.m. in the evening, but I know for some of you it's going to be possibly morning, possibly lunchtime, possibly evening or a late afternoon. What I want to do is I just want to start really quickly with, in the chat box, not the question section, but in the chat box, can you just put in your name and where you're from? I'm always curious to know where different people are from and who I'm speaking to. I know the vast majority, in fact, I think all of you are based in the United States, but I'm just curious to understand where today I'm reaching from London. Now, I'm going to do the presentation. I'm going to use a number of slides. I talk quickly, and in order to get through the content, I also talk quickly. So there is going to be a recording of this. You do have the slides, and we will do questions at the end, but I want to crack on, and I want to see, well, I want to get through the information, because that's what you've come to attend today. So let's start with the first slide. So first slide I think to pay attention to is this. When we're dealing with retention, you need to understand that retention is not the opposite of attrition. Now, a lot of people write it down like that. I hear lots of people talk about it like that, but actually the opposite of attrition is sales. So people join your facilities, they stay, which is retention, and then they leave, which is attrition. So retention is a measure of months of staying, where attrition is the measure of how many people left. So you can't have the opposite of retention, months, measured by people who've left. So retention is how long people stay. And I think it's really important to understand that, so we don't misunderstand some of the content of today's presentation. Now, I want to start with this simple diagram. Now, imagine these are 2 clubs. The top club joins 1,000 members over the course of a year. Those members each stay 3 months, and then all of them quit. So you've joined 1,000, each of them stays 3 months, and then they quit. 1,000 quit. In the second club, you've got 1,000 people join. They stay 12 months, and then 1,000 people quit. So what you're looking here is that the top club has a retention of 3 months, and the bottom club has a retention of 12 months. So the revenue generated by the bottom club is 3 to 4 times as much money just on those 1,000 members as the top club. Now, for the top club to come anywhere close to making the same amount of money as the bottom club, generating that sort of revenue, it's got to sell 4,000 memberships. It's got to sell 4,000 memberships to people who are going to stay 3 months. So my interest has been for a very long time, how do you get people to stay in your clubs? What can you do to keep them exercising? Because my background started as a fitness instructor working in a YMCA. And then I became a personal trainer, and I became the fitness manager, and ended up being the general manager. But I've always been fascinated by what you can do to keep people exercising, because they seem to turn up full of motivation, full of enthusiasm. and they believe that exercise is going to be their new passion. They're going to be doing it all the time. Within 6-8 weeks, many of those people have gone. And it's one of the reasons I went and studied academically, as Marianne said. I've done master's degrees in exercise and health psychology, and then I did a PhD, because I want to know what we can do to help those people who come and present to us and say, help me become an exerciser, help me start this journey of being active on a regular basis. So I want to extend these arrows. I want these arrows to be as far apart as possible between the join and the quit. Now, over the time, because we've been able to access a lot of data from various operators around the world and from some software companies, we've been able to bring together what we call our top 10 factors impacting retention. So similar to the ACSM in terms of their top 10 trends, we have our top 10 factors. Now, we don't update them as frequently as the ACSM, because actually the factors don't change that often. What does affect whether they change or not is usually the amount of data we've got. So if you look at this image now, in number 4, it's group exercise. Group exercise 5 years ago was on the other column. It was down at 6 and 7. Why was that? Has group exercise got better? Nothing's changed about group exercise. We just have more data about people who do group exercise, because they tend to book their group exercise through apps. So we know they're coming to group exercise. Where in a lot of venues we used to work with, a lot of businesses, they had swipe access, so we knew they were coming into the clubs, but we didn't know where they were going when they were in the club. So now we're able to access booking data through apps. We can tell where people are going. So we've been able to move and shift this around. So we have this top 10 list. They are in order of importance, and I'm going to go through them, starting with number 1, so that if we do get close to running out of time, the ones that are least important are the ones that we can just put to one side. So the first factor is about visits, and visits is really important, particularly now post-COVID. And I do understand that some of you may still be going through restrictions. You might still have challenges in the way in which you're able to work. So we broke down for our clients customers into 3 types of groups. We started with this group. We call them the keen and careless. They're sort of superheroes in effect. These are the people who visit your facilities who really don't pay attention to any of the restrictions, any of the legislation, any of the requirements that have been introduced because of the COVID situation. They don't clean, they don't socially distance, they just don't behave the way we need to get them behave. Now, not only is this true of some of your customers, some of your members, it might also be true of some of your staff. They don't believe that COVID is going to impact them. And I know here in the UK, that was particularly true of staff that were quite young. And also a lot of the male young staff were like, I'm not going to get COVID. I'm young people don't get COVID. I'm fit, I'm healthy. But they didn't understand that their behavior affected other members' behavior. Because the second group we've got is what we call the observers. These are the people who come back in, but they're constantly watching what's going on. They're watching the other members' behavior. They're watching the staff behavior. And they're the ones who are going to withdraw from exercising in your facilities if you don't maintain your standards, maintain your rules. And there's all sorts of little things that are important to them. They're looking at the staff behaviors. They're watching what the superheroes are doing, and they're watching what your staff are doing to cope with the superheroes. Then the third group that we have is what we call the scared. Now, these are a group that probably aren't returning that quickly. In fact, I was talking to an operator today who said all of their customers, all of their members have started paying again, but there's at least 20% who have said, we don't mind being unfrozen, but we're not coming back just yet. We're going to hold on a few more months, because they're worried. They're worried either about their own health or spreading the virus to people who they're caring for. Some just aren't able to come back for other reasons. But when these people do come back, these are the people who are, they're super observant. They're really paying attention. These are the ones who are going to continue to wear masks when they exercise. They may even bring their own detergent and their own cleaners to clean your equipment. Please don't let them do that. We have had one case here in the UK where someone had bleach in a spray thing, and it took all the decals off their cardio console that they were using. Also, when I was talking to the manufacturers recently, they're saying spray the cloth and then wipe the cloth on the equipment. Don't spray the equipment because it's causing lots of problems, particularly with the cardio equipment. So we've got three types of members: the superheroes, the observers, and the scared. And we need to manage them throughout our environments. Now, the number one thing that we do need to drive in our businesses is we need to drive visits. If it doesn't matter how well trained your staff are, it doesn't matter how big or beautiful your facility is, if they don't visit, none of that matters. In fact, visits are the number one predictor of retention in your business. I'm going to show you just how many visits someone needs to make to hold on to them. And I think you'll be a little bit surprised by this. So if we look at visits, what we're looking for is we're looking for at least 4 visits per month. Now, I know, having been a trainer, and I trained with the ACSM, I trained with NASM, I trained with NSCA, I trained with lots of other organizations that are represented by the alphabet. But it doesn't matter what training I've done, because if customers don't turn up, if members don't turn up, it has no impact. But what we do know is, as long as they maintain a frequency of at least 1 visit per week, or somewhere between 4 and 12 visits per month, they stay longer. So I know it's not enough to change their physique, I know it's not enough to have a medical impact on them, but it is enough for them to retain their memberships. Now, I split the visit frequency down into these groups, and you know, I use some terms that are slightly provocative, and I do that deliberately because I think it helps you remember things. If we start at the top, what we've got here is just a set of data we took from an operator we work with over 1,000 of their members. We randomly sampled 1,000 members, and then we broke them down, and we looked at their behavior over a 21-week period. So it's basically from the 1st of January for 21 weeks, because that's where we were at the time of the year when we were doing it. And what we saw was that only 5% of the customers were coming more than 3 times per week, and we called those the hardcore. The enthusiasts were coming 3 times per week, 5%. Regulars, 14% of them were coming at least twice per week. The triers, 32% were coming once per week. Then we have what we call the group called the occasionals. Now, 31% of them from 1,000, so you're talking 310 people, are coming less than once per week. And you might go, Paul, how can you come less than once per week? Well, in 21 weeks, they might have come 20 times. So there's a possibility that they don't come even one, you know, there's a week that they miss. But there was 11% of that membership that didn't visit at all. Now, we draw a red line across this, which is what we call the at-risk line. So anything below that red dotted line are at risk. And one of the behaviors we see a lot is that people that we've labeled here as triers and occasionals often switch between the two. So they maintain regular behavior for a little while, then they drop out, then they come back in again, then they drop out. They maintain their membership, but they're not really staying within the business. Now, what you need to understand is this: that red line, below that red line, are the at risk of quitting group. And in this example, that's 42% of this business's customers. Now, during the pandemic, the 11% at the bottom, the sleepers, they would have gone anyway. They've cancelled in the first few weeks of the pandemic, and now this business is going to have to readjust from having, let's say it was 1,000 members, it's a bigger club than that, and now they have 890 members total, because they lost 110 members because sleepers woke up and left. Please be aware that the idea that sleepers are good for a business is a good thing. They are not. Sleepers will on average give you 6 months of revenue before they quit. People who visit at least once per month, just once per month, will continue to pay for up to 12 months. They're worth twice as much revenue to you over their lifetime as letting them sleep. So do not let people go to sleep. You need to intervene early When you notice their visit frequency pattern dropping away, you need to get back in there and try and get them back in the club and using the club. Now, compared to people who do 1 visit per week, people who do 2 visits per week stay an additional 7 months. People who do 2 to 3 visits per week stay an additional 19 months compared to those people who just stay once. And those people who are coming 3 or more times a week almost stay indefinitely. You know, these are the people who love to exercise, they want to exercise, and you can almost not stop them from exercising. So they will continue to come. And in fact, I've got 28 weeks here, but that's pretty much because that was the length of the time of the study. So what we want to do is we want to look at this and we want to go, right, what percentage of our members fall into which groups? Now, the challenge that we have is that many of our staff are happy talking to the hardcore and the enthusiasts, because those are the people who are most like them. But the ones we really want to talk to a lot are the triers. As soon as we get them up into the twice a week bracket of exercise, we've done well. So we want to focus some of our attention on the triers, and we want to get the occasionals up to the trying level. So they're coming at least once a week. So visits is really, really important. Visits will determine the impact of any of the other interventions you might try. So you've got to try and keep encouraging visits. Now, when they do visit, what you need to do is you need to encourage interactions. And you want those interactions to be, you know, appropriate interactions. And I'll describe what I mean by that. But we have data that says if both reception and fitness staff, so front of house and fitness staff, always spoke to all members, we've been able to estimate that 44% of all your cancellations would be avoided. That's a big impact. Now, what do I mean by having interaction? That could be smile and say hello. It could be you're on the phone and you nod someone's recognition as they swipe in and go through into the building. It could be you speaking to somebody while they're finishing their exercise. But what you need to be mindful of is that you don't interrupt them during their exercise. So there's a time and a place to interact. And as a friend of mine, Chris Stevenson, said at an event today we were both speaking at, if they walk in wearing noise cancelling headphones, just smile at them and show them that you've spoken to, you show them that you've acknowledged them. They don't want to be spoken to. They're telling you that with their headphones. So this is my favorite slide, and I try and squeeze this into as many presentations as I can, because I think this will really drive home the impact of what we've been able to measure. So this is what we're looking at here, is the probability of you being a member next month and using the club if I speak to you this month. So we're late into July. So if I speak to you once in July, you're 20% more likely to still be a member next month. If I speak to you 2 to 3 times in July, the chances of you being a member in August go up by 50%. And if I speak to you on 4 or more occasions, the chances of you being a member in August go up by 80%. Now, in order for me to do 4 interactions, that does require 4 visits. So it's not 4 interactions in 1 visit. I do need to do 4 visits. But if I'm only making 4 visits and I interact with you, the likelihood of you staying within the business goes up by 80%. Now that is what I would call a low cost, no cost intervention. If you have staff and you encourage your staff to smile, speak, say hello, and some of them will say, we do that to everybody, that will have an impact on your business. But what I would do is I would survey members on the way out and saying, when you're in today, did someone speak to you? And just do a simple gait analysis. Yes or no, 1, 2, 3, 4, cross, 5. And see how many got spoken to and how many didn't. You'll be surprised at how many of your members are not spoken to, yet all of your staff will insist that they speak to every person that comes through the building. Now, what is interesting is when you observe staff talking to members and then you say to the member, did someone speak to you? And they say, no, they didn't. And what they're really telling you is, well, while they did speak to me, it had no impact. It had no influence on my thinking. And in fact, it's so innocuous, I don't even remember it happening. So you do need to do an exit poll to see if people are doing it. And then you also need to do some observational studies to see what's going on. Now, this is the impact of a study we did on 32,000 members. It was a business called Fitness First. It had it had more than 16 clubs, but this study was 16 clubs, 32,000 members. And in one group of 8 clubs, we kept them as the control, and they represent the blue line, and the red line represents the clubs where we went in each club and we did 1 day's training on how to start and maintain a conversation, when to do it, how to build rapport, how to break rapport to finish a conversation, topics of conversation, how to engage other people. And what you can see here is the length of time those customers stayed. Now, as you look at this diagram, what you're looking at is if all the members, 32,000, are on the vertical axis, the red and blue lines just plot when they left in months. So that's not months in terms of January, February, March. That's months in terms of when they joined. So we always default back to day 0 and measure forward. And this was over 18 months. But at 12 months, you can see the gap between those who remember being spoken to and those who don't remember being spoken to is about 44%. So you can retain 44% of your members, or in this example, there were 44% more members retained because the staff were more interactive. But as I'm going to reiterate this, it's interaction, not interruption. And you'll probably find people are more likely to talk to you on the way out than on the way in. On the way in, they want to get to their class, they want to get to their session, they want to do their workout. On the way out, they want to talk about what they've done, particularly if they've had a good experience. Now, a tip I would give you is this. On the way out, ask 2 questions. How was your workout today? Because that gives you immediate feedback about their experience in the clubs. If it was a bad experience, it looks like you're concerned and you can deal with it straight away and maybe offset that rather than getting a poor posting on social media or someone writing to you because they feel like they've shared it. If you get a good piece of feedback, it actually does 2 things. 1, it makes the staff feel good. Secondly, it also makes the member feel good because as they're telling you about their great experience, they're reliving it and they're getting that experience a second time. Now, the second question I would ask is, when will we see you next? When are you in next? Because remember, I've said the number 1 thing is we want to drive visits. So the number 1 question I want to ask is, when are you coming back? So as people are leaving, if you've got front of house staff, it doesn't really matter if it's front of house or anywhere else in the building, how was your workout today? When are you in next? Because both those questions will really help shape the experience you're providing to your customers. Now, if we look at the numbers, what that meant was that the group that had no interactions, that we were losing 123 per 1,000 customers per month. Those who had at least 1 interaction, we were only losing 40 per 1,000 per month. The average length of membership for the no interaction group was 4.9 months. And those who remember having at least 1 interaction was 14.5 months. So we were saving 84 people a month, and we increased the length of stay of those 84 people by 9.6 months. So it has a really big impact. Now, once we've got beyond the interaction phase, and we could just spend the rest of the time today talking about visits and interactions, we need to think about programming. Now, programming is fairly straightforward. The exercise content must be directly related to the member's goals. And the member must be able to understand that relationship. So if you've got trainers designing workouts for members, and the member says, I want to lose weight, let's just use a generic lose weight. And then they put them, they start giving them kettlebell exercises to do, or they ask them to use a Swiss ball. If the customer or the member cannot see the relationship between those exercises and their outcome, you know, rationally, why am I doing this? I don't see how this relates. They stop doing those exercises. They'll only do exercises if they can directly understand, relate to their outcome. So programming in some ways has to be very simplistic. You want weight loss? We're going to give you activities that drive weight loss. If you want muscle building, we're going to give you activities that drive muscle building. And then, but you've got to explain how those exercises build muscle. Now, one of the things that I see get abandoned a lot within exercise routines is the stretching phase, because a lot of members do not understand what the benefits of stretching are to resistance training or to cardio work. And so they shorten it down. Even in the group exercise classes, you know, it's a 45-minute class and there's a warm-up that's a minute and there's a cool down that's a minute. And in fact, members are leaving even before the cool down because they don't understand the benefit. Or the teacher, the group exercise teacher instructor, is pushing the class right up to the edge of the time limit because it's like, I don't want to be laying them on the floor and stretching them out. I want them to get 44 minutes of working out, not 41 minutes with some stretching. So we must be able to show this relationship between the two things. Now, obviously, a lot of people now in terms of exercise programming are looking at doing this remotely and may continue to do it remotely. But I'm going to say this, and it's probably not the best example to use with a group of your background, but when online casinos opened, many casinos owners were frightened that they would lose a lot of business. And they did lose a little bit to start with. But within the next 3 to 5 years, the number of people attending or visiting casinos and poker rooms and stuff actually increased and accelerated past the growth they were expecting. Because what people did was they started using online gambling and learning how to play the game and getting confident at doing it. And what we're seeing with online exercise is people who wouldn't normally walk through the doors into a club are doing things at home first. And as they're getting more confidence and competence, then they're wanting to come in and you actually have the same experience, but within a club environment. So while a lot of operators are concerned about we're going to lose everybody to online, I don't think you are, because there are an awful lot of people that will still want to do online. In fact, you were probably busy as soon as you opened your doors for the first 7 weeks, then it sort of plateaus down a bit. But people want to exercise. We've been successful as a race, the human race, because we're really highly collaborative and we like socially engaging. In fact, one of the complaints about the pandemic was the lack of social engagement. Now, number 4 is group training. Now, group training, as I said, has gone up our list, but mainly because we have more data. Now, if we look at there was a study done by a friend of mine, Dr. Melvin Hillsden, for an organization called TRP, and he studied 10,000 people. And in the 10,000, what he saw was that almost half the people in the group only did one activity. They either did the gym, or they went swimming, or they played tennis, or they played basketball, or they did group X. 32% did 2 activities. So they did gym and swim, or they did the gym and classes. And 20% did 2 or more activities. So within a business, we've got a breakdown not just of the different types of activities, but we've also got a breakdown of the combinations of activities those people do. Now, when we look at group exercise, the things we need to focus on to make it even more sticky are these. So we need to think about what the customer's routine is. Now, that might sound strange, but one of the things we've been looking at for the past 4 or 5 years is what are the factors that impact class choice and people sticking to the class? Well, one of those factors is actually the client's routine, the member's routine. You know, what time can they come? What sessions can they attend? And what we found is, and I refer to it as the Zumba effect, and you'll understand why in a second, because we did a study where we interviewed 1,000 members face to face who'd all had more than 2 memberships. But one woman was talking about her exercise experience, and she said, Thursday night is Zumba night, because on Thursday night I go to Zumba. My husband has to get home work early to look after the kids, or he has to arrange childcare, because Thursday night is Zumba night. Now, what she was basically saying is, I've found a period of time in the week when I can exercise, and I'm protecting that now. I've ring-fenced that as my time to do my thing. So what we're looking at is, when we're looking at this list of things and we're saying, okay, customer routine, what periods of time during the week are they available to attend your classes? When can they get in? Because we might have a full timetable, but actually the structure of the timetable, the timing of the classes may not suit everybody. Now, I'm not saying that we need to then change the classes to suit a few, but we need to think about, why are classes busy at 6 o'clock? Why are they busy at 7? Is it because of the content, or is it because that's the time available? So we need to think about, the customer's routine in terms of the factors that affect the impact of a class. Obviously, we need to think about the quality of a teacher. There's a massive desire at the moment, it seems, that every teacher needs to be a rock star teacher. Now, I'm not convinced that every teacher does need to be a rock star teacher. I just think we need good teachers who teach quality classes and a quality experience. I think it's going to be very difficult to just get every class teacher we've got as a rock star teacher. What they must be is they must have real empathy for the group in front of them. They must be able to generate this relationship. Now, the other things that are impacting class choice are things like I've mentioned this before, but time of class, the actual content. You know, do I want to lift weights in a group environment? Do I want to do yoga? Do I want to do Pilates? But also the social aspects. And there's an element of what's called cognitive unloading, and that is giving up responsibility for the workout to somebody else. I don't want to have to think about what to do. Just show me what to do and I'll copy. Because what people often find is towards the end of the day, they achieve what's called cognitive overload. They have so many things going on in their mind that they don't want to think about something else. So they walk in and they go, take me through a workout. And it's one of the reasons things like F45, Orange Theory Fitness, Barry's Bootcamp have been successful to a point, is that I don't have to think about the workout. Someone's going to put me through a tough workout, which I may not be able to do if I did that on my own. So we've got a number of these factors impacting class choice. Now, yes, we want to be able to stream if possible, but we need to be realistic about this as well. We've seen within our client base, numbers using streamed services drop dramatically as soon as the club opens. So when there is no choice to go and do group exercise live, they choose to do it online. As soon as there's an opportunity to do it live, they stop doing it online. Does that mean I think this is going to go away? No, it's not going to go away. But I think you need to be mindful of how much time and resource you put into an online program. Because when you are competing with someone like Peloton, who I consider to be the best at the business at this at the moment, that's all they do. They're highly financed, they're highly resourced, and they're highly structured into entertaining exercise. And they're an entertainment company first and an exercise company second. Now, you will be able to do something with your team, with your staff, because they actually have a relationship with the people who are consuming it. But you also need to be aware that the quality of what you're going to be able to produce on a regular basis is not going to match that of some of the mass producers. And so you need to find an appropriate level for you that allows you to do some streaming but doesn't end up costing you so much money because you're trying to compete with Peloton, and you're just not going to compete with organizations like that. But the home workout isn't going to go away, and it should really now be an extension of your business. That opportunity that if I'm away traveling, I could do my favorite class with my favorite instructor. I could do it at home. I do laugh myself about the size of people's homes in these images, where they've got lots of room for a treadmill and a bike and a mat. We don't have the luxury of super large spaces in the UK in our homes. So think about, if you are designing these workouts, think about the actual amount of space somebody might have, because it's not a studio space. I watched someone recently teaching, or during the pandemic, teaching bear crawl across the floor, and they go, do 4 forwards and do 4 back. Well, in most spaces, in most UK homes, the only place you could do that is probably in the yard. There isn't space indoors to do that. So be mindful of the content. We also know that if 66% of class goers also report visiting the gym. So Group X isn't an exclusive activity. People who do Group X also go and run on treadmills. They also go and do weights. But we do know this: if we could get people to do at least one group exercise activity, you'd probably reduce your overall cancellations by about 18%. Now, what I'd do here is I'd be mindful, because you can't get, like, so for me, I'm sitting in my office, just to the side of me, I have a spinning bike. If you saw me on the gym floor riding a bike, encourage me to do the spinning class. If I'm doing functional training, encourage me to do the boot camp. You're probably not going to get me off a spinning bike into a Pilates class. So try and align what you see people doing in the gym with classes that are similar, so that as they switch over, it's a context that's changing rather than the content that's changing so much. In terms of social and community, well, we call it social, but we're probably going to rename this community. It's about the relationship you build with your customers, with your members, and how well you've done that. Now, when we look at this, we were able to do a study looking at people who joined because they wanted aesthetic reasons and people who wanted to join for friends reasons, you know, to be around and for a social reason. And what we saw was that the people who joined for friends stayed longer than people who joined for a training effect, which we thought was quite interesting, because you'd think that a lot of people are joining because they want bigger muscles, less fat, a more toned body, be able to run more. However, they value the social aspect even more than they value the outcome from the training. Now, that may not be true if you're recovering from an illness and you're trying to get back to health. It may not also be true if you're training in somewhere like a CrossFit, but I know you guys aren't, you know, it's not your market. But just be aware the social impact of training, being around other people, like-minded people, is really, really important. Now, I'm based here in London, and you know, people say to me, well, you don't have to join a gym to run, you could run down the streets. Now, unfortunately, if I talk to many of my female friends, they said, I'd never run in London. One, pollution's not good. Two, the surfaces are uneven, but mainly because of all the whistling and catcalls they get from men. And they said, well, I'd never get that in the gym. If I get on a treadmill and run on a treadmill in the gym, good air quality, nice surface, and no one is calling me out or berating me because I'm doing my run. So I feel more comfortable and more socially accepted. So one of the reasons, you know, that people join gyms is because they want to be around other people like themselves, and they want to create these friendships. What I'm not into doing is trying to put two people who don't know each other together to try and make them friends. You know, I would always encourage people when they're joining saying, is there someone you can train with? Because we know that if you train with a training partner, one, you actually get slightly better results, but secondly, some of those results come from being consistent. You keep training, you keep turning up, you keep doing your activities. So look for ways in which you can encourage people to train with other people. Now, in terms of your digital communication, particularly around community and social, you need to think about a 1-to-4 or 1-to-5 ratio. What I mean by that is you only sell to them one email in 5. Because if you try and sell, if you start sending out either emails or SMS text messages, or you do it on social and every post is a sales message, you will not get much engagement from your community. They will not share because they will just see that as you trying to sell them more things. However, if you're sharing content about someone who's just achieved, so let's say someone right at this moment from your club as a family member that's at the Olympics, and you share a picture of the family member, the person who's a member of your club, and say, you know, their cousin, their aunt, their brother is currently representing the USA at the Tokyo Olympics. You know, people will engage with that a lot more than you go half price off PT. In fact, there's one really big training organization in the US that I've spoken for, and I think almost daily I just get sales net messages, buy this course, now this event, now this event. So you want a ratio of about 1-to-4 or 1-to-5 content, share stories, share updates, share a piece of research written at an appropriate level, you know, share tips for training, and by the way, so, and then you can sell. Otherwise, your communities, your online communities will not grow. In fact, what we've noticed is you really need more of the content to be from your members, so it's member generated content, if that's going to thrive. Because if all the content is being generated by the business, it really ends up with tumbleweed and you don't get great interactions. On the next one in there is goals. Now, goals is quite a long way down, not because it's not important, it's just it's really difficult to get data from operators on which customers have set goals, how long they did their goals for, did they achieve their goals. You know, just collecting all that data is a challenge. So there's lots of research out there on goal setting and the impact on goal setting. The challenge we have in the fitness industry is no one seems to record it, so we can't see on a day-to-day basis how well that's going. But I would encourage you to try and set goals with your customers. Now, this can be done during the onboarding phase. It can be done even during the sales phase, to take the emphasis away from the actual selling process and more towards the outcome afterwards of what are you going to do and how you're going to use the club. You can talk about what they're going to get from using the club. Now, one of the things that we look at is that we know that progress towards a goal is a really important determinant of retention. And in fact, we look at it in this format, and this is a fairly traditional format where a point A is your present state, point B is your outcome state. And what many of our fitness staff, our PTs do, is they tend to dive straight into SMART goals, that specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time framed. So they dive into the detail about how that's going to be achieved. Now, we always recommend that you hold off diving into the detail. We put another step in there. We say, do this before you do that. So that would be the classic look. The bit that we would do is we would introduce what's called this, and they're called superordinate goals. Now, a superordinate goal is an abstract, but it is also a motivator. So if I said to someone, you know, what do you want from your training? And they said, I want to lose weight. My question to them would be, what would losing weight do for you? So I wouldn't go straight down into the SMART area and go, how much weight do you want to lose, by when, what's your time frame, what are you doing currently? I wouldn't go into the detail. I'd go up. So what would losing weight do for you? Oh, then I'd feel more confident. And then I might ask a few more questions along that, in that same theme. It's like, oh, so if you're more confident, what would you be able to do then that you can't do now? Oh, then I might go dating again. Because actually, the driver and the motivator is the superordinate goal. That's what drives people's behavior, not 20 pounds, not 100 pounds, not, oh, you know, this body fat percentage or this VO2 max. The motivator of the behavior is abstract. And the more abstract the motivator, actually, the more powerful it is. But you can then have a conversation with someone saying, how's your training going? You know, well, another 8 sessions and we'll be signing you up for a dating agency. You know, if you've got that relationship, you can have those. That's more motivating than going, oh, just another 2 pounds to go. Because the measures are just the outcomes. The motivator are what's called these superordinate goals. Now, it isn't that we wouldn't do the SMART goals, it's just we would do the superordinate goals first. And we found that to be a really powerful technique in terms of retaining people. It also gives you something to talk about that isn't numbers dependent, where people might have failed. You know, if it's weight loss and they haven't lost weight, or if it's weight gain or muscle strength, you know, how much were they lifting and they haven't achieved it? You know, how much closer do you think you are to dating? You can have a separate conversation where they haven't failed yet. We do know that for each goal a member reports making progress on, the risk of cancelling in the next month fell by about 10%. So goal tracking can be really, really important. And with the increase in the use of apps and the ability to track your workouts, this could be a really strong resource for operators going forwards. Now, we also know that members who report low progress, but are always spoken to by staff, are actually 50% less likely to cancel each month. So actually having staff interact with members, even if they're not making progress, they report, actually, I'm still going to stay. So that is a virtuous cycle. If I speak to you, you visit. If you visit, I can speak to you. It drives it. So even if people aren't making progress, they will stick to the business. They will stick to the task. Now, if all low progress members were spoken to at least frequently, 10% of all cancellations would be avoided. So that's a decent enough number to put some emphasis on the staff to talk to customers, to drive those interactions. Then we have contracts. Now, this has moved up and down our list. It's not something the staff can do. This is decided at board level or senior management level. And it's about how long you're signing people up for. And at the moment, it's a rather unique situation because we're in this situation where a lot of businesses have been closed for a long time and they're opening up gingerly to bring members back in. But I can show you this data. I know it's just popped up as a slide, but I can show you this data from North America, split by USA, split by Canada, every country in Europe, Australia, China, 31 different countries. This looks exactly the same. Now, what we have is this. This is a survival curve, and what you're looking at are different types of membership. But it's really easy to understand which memberships you're looking at. The shortest memberships are the ones where they quit more quickly. So the blue line is 1 month agreement paid monthly, where you can come in and leave at any time you like. So you literally are going month by month by month. The red line is some sort of agreement between 2 and 11 months. And to be fair, that's usually 6 months. It's usually a 6-month contract. We have measured the sort of the 3-month contract, the 6-month contracts and things like that. Usually what we see is after 3 months they go, after 6 months they go. But if you sign them up to 12 months and don't enforce it, you get a little bit better, particularly in the early months where they've signed up to a 12-month contract and you can see that they're staying within the business. Now, those people at 12 months then tend to die away. Now, if you're the type of business that enforces your agreements or enforces your contracts, what you see in a diagram like this is a dead straight line for the contract period, let's say 12 months, and then a cliff. So what you're seeing here with the 12 months is actually many of the operators in this study let their customers out. In fact, they let about 20% of people out, just over, within the first 12 months. Then you see it accelerate. It's that green line in the middle, and then they go. But remember this, everything underneath those lines represents income. It represents revenue. So the higher those lines are, the more revenue you're generating from every member. Now you can see here, this is actually Australian data that we did on 1 million members. And you can see that they've even got 24-month contracts. And even if you let people out of the 24-month contracts, they stay longer than the 12 months, even if you let them out. So even if you don't enforce contracts, having those agreements means that people will tend to stick to them more. The one piece of advice I would give is this: if you do month by month by month, please don't say to people, if you join this month and you're not really getting on with it, you can cancel next month. Now you've put that idea in their head. You know, they weren't thinking of canceling when they joined. They were thinking this is their new lifestyle, but we've put that idea in their head. One of the things I'm saying to, you know, I'm working with a lot of clients at the moment. A lot of operators are going, it's 3 months to start with, fixed, and then we move on to a rolling contract. We've flipped it. We've said to people, to give them confidence, the first 3 months, it's just month by month by month. But if you decide you want to stay, we'll roll you in to a 12-month contract after that. So we're saying to them, give us 3 months to try us out, see how well we do. And if that works for you, we'll then sign you up for a longer period, rather than the other way around, which is we're going to fix you in for 3 months. And then if you want to go after that, you can quit whenever you like. And we've actually seen that to be really, really successful because people are trusting the businesses more, where they're seeing this, do 3 months, you know, you got to sign up for 3 months. Says you'll sign us up 3 months because you don't think you can keep us beyond that, but at least you got 3 months money from us. So you have to be mindful of how you introduce these things. Age is always a factor. Basically this, older customers stay longer than younger customers, but they're harder to get. And in fact, in the fitness industry, being over 35 makes you old. And what you can see here is average length of membership by months against age groups. And you can see that the 16 to 24-year-olds on average give you about 15 months. But someone over the age of 45 will give you 22 months. They'll give you an extra 7 months of membership by age. Got to tell you though, they're harder to sign up. However, I'm making an assumption here. The types of facilities you've got are probably more attractive to an older group. They're also more attractive to families, and particularly if you can have family memberships. Family memberships are the highest retaining types of membership. The only thing that comes close to them are swim memberships, because swimmers tend to come in and do the same thing very, very routinely. Challenges in most situations, there aren't enough swimmers to run a business, but families are the stickiest type of membership, but there must be activities for the whole family. So age always looks like this on a survival curve. They always drop out, but the over 35s always stay longer than the under 35s. Now, if all of your members are aged at least 35 years of age, 30% of your membership cancellations will be avoided. So if you can draw, the younger members are much easier to get, but they're much more transient. Over 35, people are much more likely to be stable in their relationships, stable in their family setting or the home setting, stable in their job, and their week is more routine. So like the Zumba woman, she could get that in every Thursday night. Is once a week doing Zumba enough to get her results? No. Is it enough to keep her a member? Yes, particularly if she's coming at the same day and time. Inductions or onboarding, this was the focus of my PhD. A well-structured onboarding process can add up to 7 months of membership compared to people who are just doing a standard 60-minute. So we included in my study, we did standard 1 hour compared to a standard 1 hour plus some additional support, 30 minutes, 20 minutes, and 10 minutes over 4 weeks. So really they got 2 hours of support in the first month rather than 1 hour, but that added 7 months of membership. So an hour's extra investment in those members paid the dividend of we got an extra 7 months out of them. And we played around a lot with psychology in those and support of exercise technique. So I've done that. We also split members down in inductions by 3 groups. Those are regular exercisers, those who've been what we call yo-yo, start, stop, start, stop, and those that need some, it's their first time. And we give support to groups B and C, and we give a different type of onboarding experience for those people who are savvy users. We don't force everybody down the same route. We split them up. While we got 3 groups, we've actually got 2 options. Usually what happens though, the group in the middle that have been members before, we call those yo-yos, they often get treated like experienced exercisers, because the question we ask them is, have you ever been a member of a club before? They say yes, so they get treated like savvy people, where actually many of them, it's better to describe them as yo-yo. They start and stop, and they need the support, so we treat them like new people. Then finally, discontent. This is really wrapping up every other little thing that has an impact. And this was done, I can tell you this was done on Gold's Gym in the US on 120 odd sites. The number 1 reason for discontent was the number 1 factor impacting retention was did not use. Now we did an exit survey, and you know, that was 82% of the people who responded, and this was 44,000 people response, said they weren't using it frequently enough. Now, there are factors within this, you know, there are little things, you know, people losing their jobs, some people were actually taken on as staff. The little things add up. And what we've noticed is this: if someone stops visiting frequently enough, they start to look at how much they're paying, and for them, the value of each visit doesn't stack up anymore. So let's say it was $50 a month and they were coming twice a week. That's good value. If it's $50 a month and they're only coming once a month, they now think that that's an expensive workout. What they don't do is they don't want to blame themselves, so they look for issues in your business. So if the showers and the locker rooms aren't clean, they blame the showers in the locker room. But you can usually trace back anyone who's leaving because of discontent to actually a drop off first in visit frequency. But they don't want to blame themselves that they're not coming. They want to use you as an excuse for their cancellations. Now, if you play around with this, and these aren't cumulative, you can't just keep adding these together, but compared to people who completed an onboarding process, you get 7 months extra. People who are visiting twice a week, you get 7 months, and so on, right the way down until you see people who are doing more than 3 times per week, you get an extra 28 months. So you get different outputs from each of them. Now, that's the top 10 factors impacting retention. I'm really conscious of time, just in case anyone wants to ask me any questions. We leave them in this order. They're probably going to stay in this order at least another 12 months. but I don't see anything else coming in and toppling that. I don't see anything coming in and impacting retention better, even online at-home workouts. So that's it. But what we're able to do with all this data is we're actually able to look at what we call prompting subsequent visits. And so I know if I book an appointment, I'm more likely to attend or turn up within 7 days. If I attend a gym induction, I'm 50% more likely to still be there in 6 months' time. So we can use this data to identify the different types of things that are going on within a business and then manage those so we get a bigger outcome. That is my last slide, apart from that one, which has got my contact details on. I'm more than happy after this session for you to reach out to me if you want to directly. And once you've had a chance to review the content, if you've got questions, get in touch. I obviously want to thank Marianne for inviting me to do this presentation, but I'd also like to say thank you to Alan Lloyd, who did join me on one of my workshops for 2 days, got up at 4:30 in the morning to be there because we did it on UK time, for actually suggesting to the association that I speak. I've probably run out of breath. I'm certainly running out of voice. I hope you found that useful.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. I do want to tell you that we did have people that chimed in to say where they were from. So we had people from Tennessee, North Carolina, and India.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So all sorts of great people joining us
Brilliant.
today.
Brilliant. Thank you.
So if you do have any questions, I'm going to just put my light on here. So if you do have any questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat bar. I will let you know that we will be sending out a speaker evaluation right after this. And please complete that because it helps us give feedback to the speaker. It helps us in planning. And you can also choose if you want a continuing education credit on there. So Sumit is saying he has a question.
Yeah.
But I'm not seeing the question. If you can type it in, I will absolutely ask it. Here we go.
Because I can't see any of the questions on my end.
Right. So here is his question. What about the retention for online coaching clients?
We don't know yet. And the reason we don't know is that most of the people who are doing online coaching clients aren't happy to share their data for analysis. That's also true of many personal training businesses. So you didn't see personal training there on the top 10 list, particularly partly because actually it doesn't have a big impact. It only has an impact on the people who do personal training. We are working with an online video provider who's streaming classes at the moment. And not only are we looking at retention by months, but we're also looking at retention, where in the videos that are being streamed, people are dropping off. So how they're being retained to a particular video. But we are noticing that we're needing a threshold of at least 6 visits per month rather than 4 visits per month to retain them. So they need to be doing more online than they do in the real world to achieve the same effect. But the actual online coaching, difficult to say at the moment because we just don't have the data.
Right. Okay. So Irene says, great presentation. Thank you so much. But she said, do you have any stats for the healthcare side? Again, these are all medical fitness facilities that are attached to healthcare.
Well, there were, within the North American study that we did for URSA, there were healthcare facilities. And now I haven't broken those out. I probably could do that. To be fair, it doesn't change very much across most types of businesses. If you are the big differences that it makes is if you are let's say a Barry's Boot Camp compared to an independent operator that's got a gym and some studios. That'll have a difference because there's one unique activity that Barry's Boot Camp is doing where it's more diverse. And the more you're like a YMCA or a multi-activity site, the more you're like all the other multi-activity sites like rec centers, YMCAs, JCCs, because actually what you've got determines how people are behaving. So we run some studies on medical conditions and people coming with extreme medical conditions who go through programs, 8 or 12-week recovery programs. But again, it's difficult to say what's having the impact. Is it the fact they were ill and they're trying to recover, or was it the program that's having the impact? But you're probably going to be, if I think about Beacon, which is Alan's facility, that's probably going to behave. If I was put the data side by side, that probably look like a JCC or YMCA of an equal type of business. Obviously they'd have to have matching facilities.
Thank you. So Kelly wants to know, does texting count as interactions that enhance retention?
No.
No?
No, but carry on doing. And the reason I say that is, and I know that says all about, they help, but it shouldn't be texting instead of speaking. So I have a diagram, it's not in this presentation, but I have a diagram that says when a business is under 1,000 members, you know what your customers are thinking and feeling, or your members are thinking and feeling, because you can see them and you can ask them. When you're somewhere between 1,000 and 5,000, the way in which we measure our businesses tends to move towards how many signed up, how much revenue we generate. So we're measuring the business in a different way, and we start to detach ourselves from the actual experience. When we get up to the mega businesses where they got 100 locations and 10,000 customers, like a Snap, they hire marketing companies to come in and do surveys to tell them what their customers are thinking. So you can do SMS as prompts, but they don't replace human interaction. We are doing a lot of work on that with several software companies because they want to know, can you do it? But it's mainly for the big scale businesses. The one thing I would say is this: if someone came into your facility today and you didn't speak to them, and then you sent them a message saying, it was so good to see you in the club today, that will upset them. Because it was so good to see me in the club, why didn't someone speak to me? Mm-hmm. So you use SMS to prompt visits. Like if I was going to say to you, Marianne, I'm really looking forward to seeing you on Saturday morning for your Zumba class, that's useful, but not just general. They've got to be much more personalized rather than just general prompts.
Interesting. So Serena has a question. Obviously, interactions in-house, in person in the club are very important. But if you track your visits and see people aren't coming after the first month of joining, do you feel that phone calls and email outreach are a good use of time?
Serena, I wouldn't leave them a month. If they've joined and they've not been in within 14 days, I'd be calling them.
Oh, wow.
I'd start with, this is where I would use an SMS. I'd send them an SMS saying, hi, it's Paul from the health club. I'm going to call you on this number today because I want to know how you're getting on. So I'm not going to call them out by the fact that I haven't been in, because they know they haven't been in. I know they haven't been in. But if I say you haven't been in, they give me an excuse. So I'm just going to ask, how are you getting on? So I'm going to SMS them, tell them that's the number I'm going to call them on, make a joke of it and say, so now you know when the phone rings, it's me, and you can choose to ignore me or answer it. When they answer it, I'd say to them, how are you getting on? If they then say to me, well, I haven't really been in, I'd be like, I'd act surprised. I'd be like, really? How come? What can we, well, when are you going to come in? What do you need to come in? If you leave it 30 days, I'm not always comfortable using this example, but it's like if I went on a date and I had a really nice first date, but then didn't ring someone for 30 days, the chance of me getting a second date decrease every day I leave it. So 14 days, and once they are a member and they're using, because one of the data we have is 3 days after they join, every day after that they don't visit, the risk of them never visiting just compounds.
Oh, wow.
Can't let them not start. They've come in, you've got to get them started. And I would say things like this. I wouldn't say to them, how often were you thinking of training? Because often the questions we go are, how often are you thinking of training and how long? You know, 3 times a week, about an hour. That's what they think. You know, they think it's jeopardy. They think that's the answer to the question. I'd be saying to them, which days of the week are you training and what time? Because then they're making a commitment to the visit. They can work out how long they can stay for, but I wouldn't be as vague as how many days are you thinking of training, and you know, how long for? What days are you going to train? What time? Which is going to be your first day? When are you going to make your first visit? I'd get that commitment. I mean, like the hairdresser says to you when you've had your hair done, not that I know, when's your next appointment? What day, what time? So I would do that. And in the US, I wouldn't leave a gap of more than 17 days before contacting someone. So if someone hasn't been in for 17 days, I'd be messaging them to ask them how they're getting on. Because in the US, your vacation periods are really short. And so you won't come in the day of your vacation, you're going on vacation, you won't come in the day you're coming home. So you need a little bit of wriggle room. Here in the UK, that needs to be longer. It's 21 days because we have slightly longer vacation periods. In Australia, it has to be 28 days because they have to travel out of Australia somewhere around the world for it to, so they have longer periods. So we can pinpoint how long a break relative to the business, but those would be general answers.
Nice. Well, we got some kudos too. Angela said, so interesting. So glad I was able to attend. And did we talk about, I know Dr. Banerjee over in India was, he's doing personal training. And so in terms of, you know, retaining his online clients.
Yeah. Right. Well, so what you need to, so really what you're doing at that level is exercise adherence. So exercise adherence is, are you keeping people following their routine on a regular basis? So for retention's an outcome measure, it's a period of time. What he's doing is he's manipulating exercise adherence, which is, do they stick to the program he's designed for them? Now, what you want is a little bit of wriggle room in that. So they do, you know, even if they did 70% of the sessions they're meant to do, that's fine. But I'd be saying to them, I'd be mapping it out and saying right at the beginning, look, first week we're going to do this, second week we're going to do this, third week we're going to do this. So they know what's coming, because what people want is confidence and competence and trust. And you build confidence by explaining what you're going to do and then delivering it. You build competence by giving them activities and exercises they can perform and be successful at and build on. So go from simple to complex. And you build trust by doing the first two. So you build exercise adherence over a period of time. And if you want to email me, and anyone who's here wants to email me, I'm actually doing a session next week for someone on exercise adherence. It will be recorded. You can watch it. It'll be another hour-long one, but you can watch it, and it's all on exercise adherence. And I'm happy to share that just because you're here.
Well, great. I'll be sure to get a hold of that too. So
Right.
if anybody wants it as well.
Well, Marianne, what I'll do is, once I've recorded it, I'll Vimeo, and then I'll send you a link, and then you can share the link.
Oh, that would be awesome. Thank you. That would be great. So that, we do have one more question from Angela. She said she handles the cancellations at her facility. If you could ask members 3 questions when they cancel, what would they be?
Well, when we do, we have a whole system for doing that when they cancel. The first thing we do is we phone up and say it's a courtesy call. So we don't talk about them cancelling. We just go, just phoning from the club to see how you're getting on. And if they say, oh, actually, I've just put in my notes, I've just cancelled. The technique we use is called, oh, really? Yeah. So, and what we do, we just go, really? As if we've never experienced that from anyone. Now, it's done to be called it's a pattern interrupt. Because what it does is the person goes, yeah. You go, how come? Never ask why. So never ask a why question in a cancellation conversation, because a why question requires a justification. And while they're justifying it to you, they're also justifying it to themselves. You want to use lots of why questions during the sales process. Why are you thinking of joining? Why now? Why are you leaving your other club? Justification, justification, justification. You don't want to say to them, why are you leaving? Because they justify it. So you ask, how come? Because how come starts to identify the process. So first I'd call it a courtesy call. Then I'd do the oh really. Then I'd ask, how come? And then I'd say, is there anything we can do? Is there anything further we can do to support you? Now, one of the things that I draw this waterfall. It's a terrible picture because I don't draw very well, but I draw a river, a waterfall, and a lake, and I draw stick people in it. And I ask this question: when's the easiest time to save a member if this was the representation? When they fall in and it's a stream before it becomes a river, when it gets to the edge of the waterfall, while they're going down the waterfall, or once they've drowned in the lake at the bottom. But who do we call? We call the ones who are in the lake already cancelled. We'd be better off calling the ones who are upstream who've fallen in the river, which is basically their visit frequency's dropped off. So depending upon what's going on within the organisation, I might restructure those calls for cancelled people to be actually sent, those become calls to people who are not visiting as frequently. So I want to save them from going over the waterfall rather than trying to bring them back from the dead. Because, you know, if most staff I speak to would rather clean than phone cancelled members. And most staff don't want to clean unless they're paid to be cleaners. So we try and move the emphasis upstream. If you have got to call them, one of the things you can do is ask them about their experience using the club. And if they said they enjoyed it, get a testimonial from them. Because if you get a testimonial from them, they say, oh, well, I'm leaving because I'm moving. And you go, well, can we just ask you how much you enjoyed using the club? They go, oh, I loved using the club. Now that might be an excuse. But so if you use the club, you know, what positive things would you say about the club? Then they say a few positive things, note them down, and just repeat them back to them. So you really like the atmosphere, you really thought the staff was supportive, and you got all your results. And they go, yeah. And you go, could we use that as a testimonial? Now, the fact that they're leaving and lying to you, they'll say yes. But what it does do, it opens the door for them to come back. Because if they change their mind at any one time, they've given you a positive testimonial and they've said why you were good. So it puts this jar in their thinking that says, yeah, I'm going, but I could come back. So that hopefully there's a few things there. I know I'm talking quickly, but hopefully that'll help.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you. And that wraps up our questions. I know we have gone over time. Our next webinar will be on Thursday, August 12th, entitled Transforming Fitness Clubs into Fitness Hubs with Debbie Bellinger. She's been a popular speaker with ours. We've got a bunch of webinars scheduled, so please visit the MFA website at medicalfitness.org for a complete list of the topics, dates, times, and links to register. And if you have a topic you'd like to see us do or an idea for a presentation, let us know. We can talk to you about that one. So again, thank you so much, Dr. Paul Bedford, for joining us today and sharing your awesome knowledge. And enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you.